The wagon wheels shrieked as they ground over the rocks, iron rims biting into the dry ruts. Dust boiled up behind, curling through the air like smoke from a dead fire. Jonas McGraw's hands gripped the reins so tight his knuckles burned white, but the mule didn't need guiding. It followed the path as though it remembered, just as he did. The house came into sight sudden, like a scar opening in the landscape. Broken fence posts leaned like drunks in the sand. The barn roof sagged. The porch boards hung loose as ribs on a carcass. The ranch had been dead for near 20 years, yet it breathed at him now, every creak in the wind whispering of what he'd lost. Jonas climbed down, boots sinking into the brittle earth. His shadow stretched long and thin in the late light. He stood a moment, listening, cicadas buzzing, a crow calling harsh from the cottonwood, the faint rattle of a loose shutter banging. Nothing more. He crossed the yard slow, each step a weight. The porch groaned when he set his boot on it. Dust rose when he laid his hand against the door, the wood rough and sun-cracked under his palm. He pushed. Hinges screamed. The air inside carried the smell of old boards, dry rot, and something else, a living scent that did not belong. Jonas stilled. His eyes adjusted to the dim. Shapes loomed. The table half collapsed, a chair overturned. His mother's iron kettle rusted in the corner. And in the far shadows, movement. He heard it first, a sharp intake of breath, then the rasp of someone standing quick. A board creaked. Jonas's hand dropped to the revolver at his side, the old Colt worn smooth with years. "Don't," a voice said, sharp but breaking, high and unsteady. Out of the dark stepped a girl. No, a woman, but young, her dress plain and torn at the hem. Sunlight cut across her face through the slats, showing dirt smudged on her cheek and eyes wide as a deer's. She held a rusted kitchen knife like it was the last weapon in the world. Jonas didn't lower his hand. "This place is mine." Her chin lifted, though her breath still trembled. Not anymore. For a heartbeat, the two of them just watched, dust motes drifting in the light between. Then she spoke again, words like stones dropped in a well. "You're going to sleep with me." Jonas's jaw tightened. The mule shifted outside, tack jangling. He let the silence hang until it near crushed the room. "Say that again." "You heard me." The knife wavered, though she gripped it tight. Her voice tried for hard but came out raw. "This ranch, it's mine now. If you're staying, you'll do what I say." Jonas studied her. Not a flicker of seduction in her face. Only fear layered with defiance. A girl cornered, fighting with the only weapon she had. Her tongue, her stubbornness. He eased the hammer of the Colt back with a click that filled the room. "You aiming to order me in my own house?" She swallowed, but her eyes didn't fall. "I'm not leaving. You can shoot me, but I won't go. Better a bullet than the ones chasing me." The words hung, heavier than the dust. Chasing. Jonas caught it, waited. His gaze shifted to the window. The horizon burned red with sunset, but beyond that glow he thought he saw the faintest curl of smoke, far out where the desert rolled into canyon. Travelers or hunters. His thumb eased the hammer back down. He holstered the Colt slow, never breaking her stare. The knife lowered an inch, then rose again quick, like she regretted showing weakness. Jonas moved past her, boots echoing on the bare floor. He touched the mantel where the old clock still sat, hands frozen at the hour he'd left. He could feel her eyes on his back, sharp as the blade her grip. "You've been living here." "Yes." "How long?" Her silence stretched before she answered, voice tight. "Months. Maybe more. I don't count." Jonas turned. "What for?" She hesitated, then said it plain, like a confession forced, hiding. The crow outside called again, harsh and final. Jonas saw the truth in her shoulders, how they hunched like she carried a weight far heavier than her years. He stepped closer. She raised the knife higher, but her hand shook now, knuckles bone white. Jonas stopped within reach of the blade. He looked down into her eyes, saw the edge of desperation carved there. "What's your name?" She blinked, the question breaking the taut silence. "Clara." "Clara," he repeated, the syllables dry in his throat. "Well, you squatted in my place. You've claimed it as yours, and you've told me how things you'll be." Her chin lifted again, but her breathing came fast, uneven. Jonas leaned closer, voice low as gravel dragged across stone. Understand this. You may swing a knife, you may spit fire, but nothing you say puts a claim stronger than mine. You want to live under this roof, you'll speak truth. You'll tell me who's chasing. The knife wavered, dropped a fraction. They'll come, she whispered, barely air. Who? She closed her eyes, as though the word itself might summon them. The Calders. Jonas felt the name strike like iron. He knew it, carried it from old whispers in saloons. Men who hunted for sport, left bones in the sand. When Clara opened her eyes, the knife was still there, but the fight had dimmed. Not gone, only buried under fear too deep for words. Jonas stepped back, slow, and pulled the chair upright at the table. He sat, the wood creaking. His revolver lay loose on the boards before him. You stay, he said, voice flat, but you stay honest. If the Calders are coming, this ground won't stay quiet long. Her fingers loosened at last. The knife clattered to the floor. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters like bones. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. The click echoed sharp against the walls. Jonas lowered the revolver, slid one brass round into place, and spun the cylinder with a flick of his wrist. Across the table, Clara flinched at the sound. She sat stiff, arms wrapped around herself, eyes fixed on the weapon like it was a snake. You ever fired one? Jonas asked. She shook her head. He pushed the Colt across the scarred wood toward her. Then you'll start. Her hand stayed in her lap. The lantern's flame threw her shadow long on the wall, trembling with each breath. Jonas leaned back in his chair. Steel in your hands better than fear in your gut. Pick it up. The floorboards creaked when she rose. Her fingers brushed the iron, hesitant, then wrapped around it at last. The gun sagged heavy, near dragging her arm down. Raise it. She lifted, the barrel wavering toward the door. Steadier, he said. Her jaw clenched. Both hands closed around the grip. Still the muzzle shook. Jonas stood, stepped behind her, his scarred hand folding over hers, guiding the weight up. The smell of gun oil clung thick, mixing with the faint sweat of her skin. Feel the kick here. He tapped the meat of her shoulder. Not here. He pressed her wrist. You locked that wrong. It'll break you instead of the target. Clara's breath came fast, shallow. What if I miss? You will. Her head snapped toward him, startled. You'll miss, he repeated, voice steady. Till you don't. They held there, silence stretching but for the steady chirr of crickets outside. Then, distant, the roll of thunder without clouds. Hoofbeats. Slow, heavy far out on the plain. Clara stiffened. Jonas's eyes narrowed. He crossed to the window, pulled the curtain aside with 2 fingers. Out past the rise of the land, faint dust curled where the horizon bled into night. Riders. They're searching, he said. Her knuckles whitened on the revolver. They'll come here. Maybe, Jonas answered, though his tone held no doubt. He let the curtain fall, turned back to her. That's why you learn now. The next morning broke sharp, sky wide and merciless. The yard lay scattered with broken boards Jonas had pulled down for firewood. He set bottles on the fence posts, each one winking glass in the sun. Shoot! Clara raised the Colt, arms stiff. The crack shattered the still air. Dirt spat up 2 feet from the fence. Again, her ears rang. She fired. The bottle quivered, but stayed whole. Jonas's voice cut like a knife. Again, she grit her teeth, fired, missed. Again, missed. Again, a bottle burst, shards flashing like crystal in the dust. She lowered the gun, chest heaving. Sweat ran down her temples, darkened her dress. Jonas studied her a long moment, face carved of stone. Not enough. Again. Her eyes flared, anger sparking through the fear. She raised, fired. Glass exploded. She fired again, until smoke hung around her like a shroud. When the hammer clicked empty, she let the Colt fall to her side. Her breath tore ragged, but her eyes held something different now. A flicker that hadn't been there before. Jonas nodded once. Better. In town, whispers crawled through the saloon like spilled whiskey. Men hunched over tables, speaking low, eyes darting to the windows. "The Calders," one spat, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Heard they're riding up from the south. Tore through Murphy's place last week." The barkeep leaned in, voice barely a breath. "They're looking for a girl." Glances traded like cards. No one spoke the name, but every head turned, just once, toward the canyon trail leading to the McGraw Ranch. And in the corner, two riders sat with dust still on their boots, listening. Their smiles were thin as razors. That night, Clara sat by the cold hearth, knees tucked to her chest. Jonas cleaned his rifle at the table, the scrape of the rod steady his heartbeat. "You should leave," she said, voice small in the shadow. "They're after me. If you stay, you'll die for it." Jonas didn't look up. "This ground's mine. They'll have to take it. I don't want you hurt because of me." The rod slid free, the chamber gleaming in lantern light. Jonas set the rifle down, leaned forward, forearms on the table. "You think they stop if I hand you over? Men like that don't quit. They hunt and they burn. Best you learn that quick." Clara stared into the dead ashes. "Then what am I to you? Burden or bait?" Jonas's gaze cut through her like a blade. "Neither. You're the fight that found me again." The words sank deep, heavy as the silence after. Outside, the coyotes howled. The wind shifted, and far off, beneath the starlit dark, the rhythm of hooves rolled once more, closer than before. The first shot shattered the night. Jonas dropped to a knee as glass burst from the window above him. Clara gasped, clutching the rifle to her chest. The air filled with dust and splinters, the smell of powder rolling in from the dark. "Down!" Jonas barked, shoving her toward the floorboards. Another round punched through the wall, with screaming as it split. Boots thudded outside. Shadows moved against the glow of lanterns swinging from saddles. The Calder brothers had come. Jonas crawled to the window frame, peered through the crack. 6 riders, maybe 7, spread across the yard, rifles flashing in their hands. Their horses stamped and snorted, eyes wild in the firelight. He raised his Colt, fired once. A horse screamed, staggered sideways, throwing its rider. Chaos split the line. Shouts rose. Bullets answered, slamming into the porch beams. Clara's hands trembled as she slid cartridges across the floor toward him. "There's more." "Keep low," Jonas growled, snatching the rounds, sliding them into the cylinder. The steel clicked home. He fired again. Another rider spun from his saddle, crashing into the dust. The brothers' leader stepped forward through the smoke, tall, broad-shouldered, a long black coat flapping in the night wind. His voice carried across the yard, deep as thunder. "Jonas McGraw, hand over the girl, and I'll let you rot in peace." Clara's breath caught. Jonas steadied the revolver on the sill. "You picked the wrong ground." The leader's laugh rolled dark. "Then we'll salt it with your bones." A wave of gunfire poured against the ranch. Boards splintered, windows shattered, the door shook in its frame. Clara covered her ears, tears streaking her dust-stained face. Jonas grabbed her wrist, dragged her toward the back. "We hold here, we die here. Move." They burst into the kitchen as another shot tore the air. Jonas kicked the table over, shoved her behind it. "You hold this line." She shook her head, voice breaking. "I can't." "You can." He pressed the rifle into her hands, locking her fingers around the stock. "Aim where the lanterns are. Don't think. Just fire." Her eyes shone wide in the flickering light. He squeezed her shoulder once, firm, then turned back toward the front. Another rush outside. Boots thundered on the porch. Jonas swung the door open, shotgun raised. The blast lit the night, threw one man back into the dust. Another lunged, knife flashing. Jonas met him with the stock, bone cracking under the blow. The yard burned with chaos. Lanterns had been thrown to the ground, fire licking at the dry boards of the corral. Horses screamed, rearing against their ties. Smoke curled into the sky, glowing red against the stars. From the kitchen, Clara's shot rang out. A cry followed, sharp, final. She gasped loud enough Jonas heard it, even over the roar. "Keep firing," he shouted, voice hoarse. The gang faltered, pulling back to the edge of the yard. The leader raised his hand, signaling halt. His men circled, rifles raised, eyes glowing in the firelight. "Jonas!" The leader called again. Laughter gone now, voice like iron. "You think you can hold? We've carved down better than you. Give the girl, or we burn this place to ash with you in it." Jonas stepped into the doorway, smoke curling around his shoulders. His revolver gleamed, steady as his eyes. "This ranch has buried better men than you," he growled. The standoff held, both sides frozen in the red haze. Fire crackled at the barn, sparks lifting into the wind. Sweat ran down Jonas's face, but his hand did not shake. Behind him, Clara reloaded with trembling fingers, breath ragged. She pressed her cheek against the rifle, peering through the smoke, waiting for the next shape to move. Then silence. No shots, no shouts. Only the low roar of fire and the whisper of the desert wind. The Calder leader stepped forward, boots crunching slow on the dirt. He pushed back his coat, showing the pistol at his hip. His eyes found Jonas's, steady cold. "One shot," he said. "Yours against mine. Winner takes all." Jonas's grip tightened on the revolver. His jaw locked. Behind him, Clara whispered, "Don't," but her voice vanished under the crackle of flame. The leader smiled, thin as a blade. "Or are you too old to draw, McGraw?" Jonas's breath came slow, measured. The Colt lay heavy in his palm, familiar as his own heartbeat. The world narrowed. Firelight, dust, the man before him. Clara's hand brushed his arm, trembling but sure. He felt her presence, the fight she'd found tonight, the fire she carried now. Jonas stepped off the porch into the burning yard. The horizon blazed, and the desert held its breath. The night split in two. Jonas's revolver cleared leather as the Calder's pistol flashed in the firelight. Two muzzles flared at once, thunder shaking the yard, smoke curling through the burning dark. The Calder staggered, coat whipping with emotion. His shot tore the brim off Jonas's hat, spinning it into the dirt. Jonas's bullet ripped across the outlaw's shoulder, snapping him sideways. The gang roared, rifles raised, but the leader's hand shot up, halting them. He straightened, blood dark across his coat, eyes blazing through the haze. "Not done," he snarled. Jonas's face held no answer, only the steady grip of a man who'd been here before. He thumbed back the hammer, steel clicking into place. The leader's pistol rose again. Their eyes locked. Two men carved from the same dust, one driven by greed, the other by ghosts. From the shadows of the kitchen, Clara's rifle barked. The shot tore through the night, striking the outlaw's pistol, wrenching it from his hand. It spun away, clattering against the rocks. The yard froze. Clara's voice carried, raw but unshaken. "Not him. Not tonight." The Calder leader's gaze snapped toward her, fury boiling. He lunged for the knife at his belt. Jonas moved faster. His revolver spat flame, the bullet striking true. The outlaw's body jerked, knife falling, his knees buckling as he collapsed into the dirt. Silence crashed down. The fire crackled, timbers groaning as the barn roof sagged. Coyotes howled far off, their cries carrying the end of the fight. The Calder brothers stared at their fallen leader. Some cursed under their breath. Others looked to the ground, shifting, uneasy. None dared raise a weapon. Jonas stepped forward into the yard, smoke and fire painting him in shadow and gold. His voice came like gravel dragged across stone. "This ground don't belong to you." No man answered. One by one, the riders pulled their reins, turning horses back into the night. Their shapes melted into dust and shadow, leaving only the dead behind. Clara stood in the doorway, rifle still trembling in her hands. Her face glowed in the firelight, eyes wide but steady, fixed on Jonas like she was seeing him for the first time. He holstered the Colt slow, heavy with the weight of years. For a long moment he didn't speak, only breathed the smoke in silence, the fight still echoing in his bones. Then he turned to her. "You did good." Her lips parted, words failing. Tears streaked her cheeks, cutting lines through the soot. She lowered the rifle at last, letting it rest against the doorframe. Together they walked into the yard, past the blood, past the broken glass and shattered wood. The fire licked higher, throwing sparks into the stars. Jonas looked at the house, the ranch, the scarred earth. A place once abandoned, now written in blood and fire. A place alive again. Clara's hand brushed his arm, light but certain. He did not pull away. By morning, the townsfolk came. They found the Calder dead, his brothers scattered, the ranch still standing though scarred. And they found Jonas McGraw, hatless, smoke-stained, standing tall beside the girl who would not bow. No man asked what had happened. They saw it in the dust, in the bullet holes, in the fire-charred beams. They saw it in Jonas's eyes, steady and unbroken, and in Clara's, fierce as the dawn. Word spread fast, faster than hoof or telegraph. It was said Jonas McGraw, the gunfighter who had vanished in his silence, had risen one last time. It was said he faced the Calder brothers with only a girl at his side, and the desert itself bore witness to their stand. And Clara, the girl who once trembled with a knife in her hands, was named in whispers as the one who fired the shot that turned the tide. The story grew, as stories do. Some swore Jonas's Colt never missed that night. Others swore Clara's aim split a bullet in midair. Around saloons and campfires, the tale was told with voices low, as though the desert might still be listening. But one truth held, carried through every telling. Jonas McGraw did not die forgotten. He did not fade into dust. He found his fight again, found it in the eyes of a girl who refused to break, and together they carved a legend into the bones of the frontier. And so the old ones say, when the wind howls across the canyon and the fire crackles low, you can hear the echo of that night. Gunfire, hoofbeats, and the voice of a man who rose from silence to stand tall once more.